All right, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun.
Yeah, today we're tackling the Cosmos Network.
Osmos Network, yeah.
Have you heard of this one?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Cosmos is interesting. It's got a lot going on.
Yeah, and it's got a pretty ambitious goal, right?
Yeah.
Building an internet of blockchains.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sounds pretty huge. What does that even what does that even
I
mean?
mean, basically, you've got all these different blockchains out there, right?
Right.
And they're kind of like silos. They're not really talking to each other. They can't really share data or value easily.
Right, right.
So Cosmos wants to change that. It's all about interoperability.
Okay, so if I'm on one blockchain and you're on another, we could actually transact somehow.
Exactly. Seamlessly move assets and data between them.
That's pretty cool, but how does it actually work?
It gets pretty technical, but the key is this thing called the Cosmos Hub.
The hub.
Yeah, think of it as like the central station of the network.
Okay.
And then you have all these different blockchains connecting to it. They call them zones.
So the hub is like the connector.
Exactly. It allows all these different zones to communicate and share information.
So we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these big ones.
Yeah, potentially. There are already zones for things like Binance Chain and
Yeah.
Terra, and they're working on bridges to connect even more blockchains.
So bridging is like building a pathway between the zones.
Yeah, kind of like a translator that allows different blockchains to understand each other.
This is all pretty complex stuff. So why should anyone even care about this internet of blockchains? What's the big deal?
Well, think about the possibilities. It could revolutionize how we think about finance, data sharing, even governance.
Okay, hold on. Let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So what kind of real world impact could this have?
Okay, let's take decentralized exchanges, or DXs, for example.
DXs, yeah.
They're already starting to challenge those big centralized exchanges we use today.
You mean like Coinbase, Binance, those kinds of places?
Exactly. Those exchanges hold a lot of power, and they've had their share of security breaches.
Yeah, not exactly reassuring.
Right.
Right.
With DDXs, there's no single point of failure. Cosmos takes it a step further with atomic cross-chain transactions.
Atomic cross-chain transactions, that sounds intense.
It's basically a super secure way to trade cryptocurrencies directly between different blockchains without needing a third party.
Like no middleman.
No middleman.
So it's more secure and potentially cheaper.
Exactly.
But how does that actually work?
Well, it involves something called a hash time-locked contract, or HTLC. Basically, both parties lock up their funds in a smart contract.
Smart contract.
Yeah, like a self-executing agreement on the blockchain.
Okay.
And the contract only releases the funds if both parties fulfill their end of the deal within a certain time frame.
So it's like a digital escrow system.
Exactly. And because it's all happening on the blockchain, it's transparent and auditable.
So I can see exactly where my money is going and what's happening with it.
Yep. No more trusting a black box.
But, I've heard that these atomic swaps can be a little bit tricky to pull off.
Yeah, they can be, especially if you're dealing with different blockchains that have different rules and time frames. That's where Cosmos comes in. They've streamlined the process and made it much more user-friendly.
So Cosmos is like the facilitator for these swaps.
Yeah, they've created a framework that makes it easier for developers to build decentralized exchanges and connect them to the Cosmos Hub.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about creating a whole ecosystem.
Exactly. They're building the infrastructure for a truly interoperable blockchain future.
Okay, I'm starting to get the big picture here. But let's be real for a second. Those big centralized exchanges have a ton of users, right? How can DXs even compete with that?
Yeah, that's the challenge. It's all about adoption. Right now, most people are still comfortable with the familiar, even if it means sacrificing some security and control.
Right, it's like trying to convince everyone to switch to a new social media platform when all their friends are still on Facebook.
Perfect analogy. But I think as more people become aware of the benefits of decentralization, and as DXs become more user-friendly, we'll see a shift.
So it's about education and awareness.
Exactly. And that's where communities like Cosmos are so important. They're not just building technology, they're building a movement.
A movement towards a more decentralized future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A future where individuals have more control over their data, their finances, their online lives.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued, but we've only just scratched the surface of Cosmos, right?
Oh, yeah. We haven't even talked about things like bridging to other blockchains, scaling solutions, or their unique approach to governance.
We've got a lot more to uncover.
We do.
I'm excited to dive deeper.
Me too.
This can be good.
Yeah. We were talking about those big centralized exchanges.
Yeah.
And how DXs are trying to, challenge them.
Right. Offer an alternative.
But there's another challenge, too.
Oh.
Scaling. Yeah, like when a blockchain gets really popular, it can get slow and expensive.
Oh, right. Like Ethereum's gas fees.
Exactly.
Yeah, those can be brutal.
So Cosmos has some interesting ideas for tackling that.
Oh, okay. Lay it on me.
Remember those Cosmos zones we talked about?
Yeah, the ones connected to the hub.
Right. Well, because they're running Tendermint consensus, they can handle way more transactions than some of those older blockchains.
Tendermint, that's their consensus mechanism, right?
Yep, it's designed for speed and efficiency.
So it's like a performance boost for the whole network.
Exactly. And they're even working on ways to scale Ethereum itself using Cosmos zones.
Whoa, hold on. Scaling Ethereum with Cosmos. How does that work?
It's called token-centric Ethereum scaling. It's kind of complex, but basically you can have multiple zones running pieces of the Ethereum network.
So it's like splitting up the workload.
Yeah, kind of like sharding, but with more flexibility.
Okay, I'm following. So this could potentially solve Ethereum's scaling issues.
Potentially, yeah. It's still early days, but it's a promising approach.
It sounds like Cosmos is pretty adaptable.
Oh, definitely. They're not just focused on one blockchain. They're trying to create a framework that can work with any blockchain.
So it's really about connecting the entire crypto world.
Exactly. Breaking down those silos and letting everything communicate.
Okay, so we've got interoperability, we've got scaling. What else?
Well, let's talk about security for a minute.
Security, right.
That's obviously a huge concern with any blockchain network.
For sure, especially when you're dealing with people's money.
So Cosmos takes a multi-layered approach to security.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, the Tendermint consensus mechanism itself is very robust.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It's super resilient, right?
Yep. It can handle a lot of different types of attacks.
But what if, a huge chunk of the network goes offline?
That's a good question. They call that a network partition.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
And Cosmos is designed to be resilient to those kinds of events.
How so?
Well, because each zone is somewhat autonomous, it can keep running even if other parts of the network are down.
So it's like a decentralized backup system.
Exactly. Which makes it much harder for someone to, take down the whole network.
Okay, that's reassuring. So it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how the network is structured.
Exactly. It's about decentralization, redundancy, all these things that make it hard to attack.
But what about human error? What if someone messes up the code or something?
That's always a possibility. But Cosmos is open source, which means anyone can review the code and look for vulnerabilities.
So it's like having a bunch of eyes on it all the time.
Yep. And they also have a bug bounty program, which incentivizes people to find and report bugs.
Okay, so they're really trying to be proactive about security.
They are. And that's another benefit of the Cosmos ecosystem. It's not just about building one blockchain. It's about creating a community of developers and users who are all invested in making the network as secure and reliable as possible.
It sounds like they're building something pretty special.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one thing I still don't fully understand.
What's that?
The Atom token.
Ah, the Atom.
Yeah, you said it's used for staking, voting, and fees, but what does that actually mean?
So the Atom is the native token of the Cosmos Hub. It's like the fuel that powers the network.
Okay.
And it has a few different roles. First of all, it's used for staking.
Staking? That's like putting up some of your tokens as collateral, right?
Right. Validators, the people who run the network, have to stake atoms to prove that they're committed to acting honestly.
And if they misbehave, they lose their stake.
Exactly. It's a way to incentivize good behavior and discourage bad behavior.
Okay, that makes sense. What about voting?
So Atom holders also get to vote on proposals that affect how the network is run.
So it's like having a say in how the network evolves.
Exactly. It's a way to make the network more democratic and responsive to the needs of the community.
So it's not just about making money from the token, it's about having a voice in the network.
Exactly. And finally, atoms are used to pay transaction fees.
Okay, so it's kind of like gas fees on Ethereum.
Similar, yeah. It's how you pay for the computational resources used to process your transaction.
All right, so atoms have a lot of different uses.
They do. It's a pretty versatile token.
And it's at the heart of this whole Cosmos ecosystem.
It is. It's what ties everything together.
This is fascinating stuff. I'm really starting to see the potential here.
Me too. It's a really exciting project to be following.
I'm curious about the Atom token, though. We talked about how it's used for all this technical stuff.
Right, staking and voting and fees.
Yeah, yeah, all that. But what does that really mean for, like, the average person? Why should they care about atoms?
Well, I think it comes down to ownership and control.
Okay.
Like right now, so much of our digital lives are controlled by big companies.
Yeah, Facebook, Google, Amazon, the whole gang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with blockchain, and specifically with Cosmos, it's about putting the power back in the hands of the people.
So how does the Atom token play into that?
Well, when you hold atoms, you're not just holding a cryptocurrency. You're holding a piece of the network itself.
Okay.
You have a say in how it's run. You benefit from its growth. You're part of the decision-making process.
So it's about, like, having a voice.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful thing.
I mean, it sounds good in theory, but, like, how does that actually work in practice?
Well, take governance, for example.
Okay.
Atom holders get to vote on proposals that affect the future of the Cosmos Hub.
So, like, upgrades to the network, new features, that kind of thing?
Yeah, all of that. And it's not just like a small group of developers making those decisions.
Right.
It's the entire community of Atom holders.
So it's truly decentralized.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's a really big deal. It means that the network is more resilient, more transparent, and more accountable.
Okay, so governance is one aspect. What about, like, the bigger picture? Where do you see Cosmos fitting into the future of, the internet as a whole?
Well, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible with this technology.
Right. It's still early days.
Yeah. But I think Cosmos has the potential to really change the way we think about online communities, digital ownership, even things like identity and reputation.
Okay, that's pretty broad. Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure. Imagine a social media platform that's completely decentralized, where users own their own data and control the algorithms.
So no more worrying about censorship or data breaches?
Exactly. Or imagine a system for managing digital identity that's secure, private, and portable.
So you wouldn't need to rely on, like, government-issued IDs or Facebook logins.
Right. You could control your own identity, and you could choose how much information to share with different applications and services.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. And I think Cosmos is one of the platforms that's leading the charge towards this kind of future.
It's exciting stuff, but I have to ask, like, what are the challenges? What's holding Cosmos back from achieving this vision?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is adoption.
Right, getting people to actually use it.
Exactly.
Right.
It's still a relatively new technology, and there's a lot of complexity involved.
So it's a learning curve for both, like, developers and users.
Yeah, for sure. But I think as the technology matures and the tools get better, we'll see more and more people embracing Cosmos.
And hopefully that will lead to, like, more innovation and more real-world applications.
Absolutely. I think we're just at the beginning of a very exciting journey.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about Cosmos and its potential.
I'm glad to hear that. It's definitely a project worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to do your own research, explore the Cosmos ecosystem, and see what this internet of blockchains is all about.
It's an exciting space to be a part of.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.